welcome back everyone to another deck profile video. Today we're going to be doing a triple attribute deck profile here. I have here Pyrus, I have Aquos, and I have Haos. This is quite an interesting matchup for the fact that they all have such unique kind of skill sets, where one is more aggressive, one is more controlish, and then one is just on its own unique thing. And I think to have this kind of distinction between each one definitely creates some interesting dynamics and interactions when it actually occurs in the game. Normally when you play Pyrus, you would want to pair it up with Darkus for a full-on aggro type of deck. When you're playing Aquos, you typically want to pair that up with maybe a Ventus, and same thing applies for the Haos as well. You would typically pair it up with Ventus, or you might just go pure. But to actually go into a triple attribute like this, it is definitely something that a lot less people actually are trying out. So with that being said, I put this out just to try and push it out there that you could definitely try a lot of different types of styles. So without further ado, let's just see what cards we actually get, and we'll move over these and actually go over each of the Bakugan on its own. So the first card we actually have here is our Pegatrix. It's definitely very interesting because it has two green fists, and while it has somewhat generic stats at 502, it could actually get better and become a 702, which is actually quite decent stats, and that is under the condition that you roll on a green fist. However, it's not a big problem because once we get to the later cards, you'll find out why it's so actually good in this particular deck. So the next card we actually have in our deck is Mantanoid Ultra. Again, it's also really decent stats at 602, and then we also have a double green fist as well, allowing you to synergize with the Pegatrix. Lastly, our final Bakugan we're playing here is Hydronoid Ultra. Also really amazing as well for the fact that this is also an Ultra just like the Mantanoid, so you get that bonus of having an Ultra Bakugan, but at the same time it has decent stats at 700 B power, 1 damage. However, with that being said, it can actually get higher, and if you roll on a green fist, which in this case it actually has double green fist, you would get 200 B power, so it would be at 901. Absolutely amazing, and I think together with these three particular Bakugan combined, they make for such an amazing deck for the fact that we're playing basically 6 green fists in this particular deck itself, and 2 of our Bakugan happen to be Ultra, but they all have really good stats as well as an overall, so I definitely really like that, and because of that I kind of wanted to actually build a deck that allowed our cards to actually synergize in some sort of way. So with that being said, let's move aside these cards and now let's actually talk about the Bakukors. So the Bakukors are pretty simple. I'm just playing here some generic ones, 150 to 2 damage. However, you guys could easily just play your own. Whichever one you actually have access to is up to you. You know, there surely are some better ones depending on what you actually own. We're also playing over here the 100 for the Pyrus and Haos, which is actually quite accommodating for this particular deck given that we actually have Pyrus and Haos, so quite amazing. But these are essentially our 6 Bakugors, and I'm not going to force you to play exactly what I'm playing. With the Bakugors, it is quite a flexible thing. You play what you could actually play in your own deck. So on with the deck profile. To begin, we're playing here 3 copies of our Fire Boost. It's a 2 cost, so very cheap, and it gives 400. There's nothing else to really say about it. It's just a really nice card to allow you to pretty much get over any of your opponent's Bakugan, given you already have good stats to begin with. Next, we're playing 3 copies here of the Impact Laser. It's a 3 cost, which is a bit higher, but that's not too big of a problem because it gives us 7 damage, and it's definitely worth it. As you guys already recall, a lot of our Bakugan actually have really low damage output, and that could actually be a problem because, yeah, we might be winning all our battles, but if we're only dealing 1 or 2 damage at a time, we're not really being effective in that particular manner. So with that being said, this particular card definitely helps out and makes up for that particular deficit. For a bit of deck thinning, we're also playing 2 copies here of Sifting Ashes. It's a 1 cost, so again very cheap, but allows you to cycle through cards in your deck, get rid of the ones you don't need, and then somehow get cards that you actually do need for your particular combo plays. For the last of the Pyrus cards, we're playing 3 copies here of the Hyper Mantinoid Ultra. It's an extremely cheap Evo card at 3 costs. It has 800 B power and 5 damage. Absolutely amazing, and I always go into this quite a lot in my games. So with that being said, there's no denying it that 3 copies is absolutely well worth it in this particular deck. Now on to the Haos cards, we're playing 2 copies here of Super Shot. It's a 1 cost card, really cheap, but it gives you plus 300. So absolutely amazing, love the boost here for such a cheap cost, and it could also kind of synergize later on when we get to the aquos cards. Next, I'm playing 3 copies here of Bone Defense. It's a 3 cost, so again, it's relatively cheap in the early game, but it boosts your Bakugan up by 700. Absolutely amazing, always guaranteeing that you'll win the battle. And of course, to make up for lack of damage output, we're also going to be playing 2 copies of Surge of Light. It's a 2 cost, so again, very cheap in the early game, and dishing out 4 damage onto your opponents, so definitely quite nice in that particular regard. For a bit of flip action, we're going to be playing 3 copies here of Light as a Feather. It's a 3 cost card, so it is definitely going to be coming off quite easily, but you allow this card to be put in your hand, and then you could also draw a card as well, which is great. This card goes in your hand, becoming extra fodder for you to play as energy, but to also draw your cards as well is definitely nice for you to actually draw into the cards you necessarily need. We are playing a deck that has relatively cheap cards or low cost cards, so we're going to expend them quite fast, and as a result, by the time we get to our later turns, we're going to somehow need to get into more cards. For the final 2 Haos cards, we're playing 2 copies here of Pegatrix. This is a really nice card. It's 6 costs, though it does offer us 1200 B power and 6 damage output, which is definitely quite amazing. So with that being said, I thought 2 copies was definitely something I thought might be okay. So on to the aquos cards, we're playing 3 copies here of Think Again, also 2 costs, very cheap, allows you to draw a card. However, if you have flow, meaning if you've played another card this turn, you get to draw 2 cards instead, so that's quite amazing for a particular card. We want to get into as many cards as possible, because a lot of our cards, like I said from the previous card, it's a cheap deck. The deck itself is playing a lot of very low cost cards, and as a result, we're going to be burning out a lot of cards and resources from our hands. We want to be able to draw into more cards and access more resources. So with that being said, Think Again is definitely a card well worth playing 3 of. Of course, to further emphasize utilizing flow in the deck, we're also playing 3 copies here of Ebb. Ebb is an amazing card. It's also 2 costs, so it's very cheap, and it gives you 2 damage. However, with flow, you could actually gain 5 damage output instead, which is absolutely amazing here and makes up for a lot of the losses that our Bakugan actually has when it comes to damage output. The next card we're playing here is 2 copies of Cycling Thoughts. It's definitely a very nice card. Again, it's a cheap card at 3 costs, but it allows you to draw 2 cards and then return this card to the bottom of the deck. We want to access our cards as quickly as possible, and of course, we get to reuse this card as well. Next, we're playing here 3 copies of Triple Blast Cannon. Just a really amazing card. It's 3 costs and negates any action card that's appropriate on your opponent's side. I do find myself going up against more opponents that's actually playing high cost cards, so because of that, the negate or the Triple Blast Cannon is definitely more appropriate in this particular format. Finally, we're playing over here for our flip cards. We're starting off here with the Counter Outsiders, just a really nice card to negate any attack from any non-aquos monster. For 3 costs, it's definitely well worth it. And the Counter Outsiders for any attribute is definitely really amazing. And finally, of course, we're playing 3 copies here of Fading Dash. Fading Dash is absolutely amazing for the fact that it allows you to actually retract one of your Bakugan that didn't open this turn, and then if you do, you get to draw 2 cards. So really amazing, really helpful, and of course, it's a 1 cost, so it's really nice as well. However, that pretty much concludes it for this particular deck profile, so if you guys enjoyed it, definitely drop a thumbs up, it really helps, and also share this video as well. Definitely leave me your thoughts as to what cards you might be playing in your deck itself. Show me your own deck list specific to these particular attributes. But with that being said, don't forget to subscribe for more videos just like this. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll see you next time.